Hello. Jordan Chariton live. Apologies. My end of the interweb is messed up again. I'm working on it with the corrupt monopoly that is Comcast. But joining me now, I think your internet is a lot better, Louis DeAngelis. And we got a big show, and you'll be able to hear me. So if I freeze, hey, we're not 60 minutes, but you should be able to hear my audio just fine. How's it going, Louis?
Doing well, doing well. Good to see you again.
Yes. Smash the like button. We're going to go on some rants. Hopefully, my internet holds up for those rants. Then we're going to have a guest a little bit later because we do have some audio dating back to 2020, actually, that's going to show state of Michigan officials who now suddenly are acting, and it's a high priority for them. The fact that a paper mill in Kalamazoo, Michigan is poisoning, and I don't say that to exaggerate, but poisoning a low income black neighborhood. Well, now it's a top priority, but we'll hear what they said in recorded conversations a couple of years ago. We'll see if it was the same when the pressure was not on. But I think we should start in East Palestine. First, Louis, tell people there's another event tonight that I know residents are, preparing for and hoping will get this back in the national discussion.
Absolutely. So, residents in East Palestine who are part of the Unity Council have been putting together this community press conference event that they have been planning for the last couple of weeks. Residents that we've talked to, including Jamie Wallace. Jamie's on the Unity Council. Aaron Bragg's on the Unity Council. A lot of other folks, while they might not sit right on the council, lots of folks are very much involved. And they're really just trying to get as many folks out as possible to continue to share the stories that are still happening with a lot of these folks in town. I covered yesterday some of this stuff, but at recent EPA meetings, residents are still getting gaslit, being told that, oh, they shouldn't be concerned about this or that thing. They're still not getting answers to so many of these questions, and they're really trying to continue to try to get their voices out there and heard, because unfortunately, a lot of their, local, state, federal officials are still not doing anything, still dragging their feet on so many of these issues. So we're hopefully going to have video of some of that event tonight to be able to share with you tomorrow night. There will not be a live stream from it, or we would potentially have tried to bring it live for you, but the cell reception where the event is going to be not so good. However, we will be pulling some clips from folks from that event that's going on tonight, hopefully for tomorrow night's show, if not later in the week, to be able to give an update there with that event going on tonight.
And, it's interesting. I don't know about you, but, in the work we do, and remember, please smash the like button. Summer's coming up. Weather's getting nicer. YouTube already doesn't really love this kind of content. So we need you to press the like button, share these live streams, all that stuff. Super chats are welcome. And we are going to be pushing to get more member signups today. We'll get into that a little bit. But it's interesting. I don't know if you've heard this, but, between you and I, whether it be East Palestine and other communities, residents contact us, obviously we're journalists, but often sometimes to kind of vent as well. And I've had folks in East Palestine tell me that they've spoken with producers at major networks who say, we've pitched coming back there, but our bosses say no. So it kind of, and we're going to get into more of the Michigan media later, but you kind of start to peel back the onion here. How is it that we're the only ones covering it? Well, apparently there are some good producers, maybe even reporters at some of these networks that understand this was not just like a weak calamity, that have pushed their bosses at ABC and other places, big news outlets, to come back and continue reporting this. But are told no, which is kind of how a lot of these things continue to get swept under the rug.
Right.
And the line that the EPA and others are feeding don't really get questioned because there's not that follow-up coverage. I mean, we're doing what we can. You're doing what you can with repeated trips there. But obviously, bigger outlets would be even better.
I mean, when you're talking about some of these larger outlets who, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, they have hundreds and hundreds, I mean, thousands of employees actually across the country who are supposed to be able to continue to stay on top of these stories. Status Coup is a handful of us. I mean, you've seen us. Like, there's no, man behind the curtain. We don't have some massive. Well, there is a man behind the curtain. Technically, it's Colin, but there's no beyond Colin. You've all seen Colin before. We don't have dozens and dozens of people behind the scenes doing this stuff for us, and we're continuing to try to push this forward on so many of these different stories that you're seeing, whether it be Kalamazoo, Flint, East Palestine, and other places. CNN has 24 hours of cable coverage going on, and to be able to do like one story every 3 weeks or so on East Palestine is absolutely ridiculous. They have the resources to be able to stay on this, to be able to push these officials from the EPA, from the state government, local officials as well, and for whatever reason, they're choosing not to. And it doesn't really make any sense to me because there's obviously interest in the story. It's one of those things that, like, when I talk to people about it, though, they like kind of forget that it's happening. When I talk to friends who aren't paying attention to the news as much, but they are asking me a million questions about this sort of thing. So there's interest in the story, as there should be, but for whatever reason, mainstream media, for the most part, has moved on. A lot of residents, too, that I've spoken with are frustrated that, when they do get a meeting with a reporter, they might do an interview, and that reporter will take about 15 seconds of what they said, and like that's the story in a quick little 3-minute package as part of a 24-hour news cycle that is lost like that.
Right. Absolutely. So, and I won't get into the whole thing, but I'm working on a story. Louis is going to help with it. It's not really revolutionary, actually. I wish I could say it was revolutionary, but it's kind of just like a buildup of the inconsistencies we've seen from the EPA over the last few months. And finally, we've caught them in some pretty glaring contradictions that, by their own words or lack of willingness to give us answers, I think once we report it, you guys are going to see what the people of East Palestine, nearby areas, because Louis, obviously, you've covered the effects in Pennsylvania, other parts of Ohio. I think they're going to realize that the EPA has either been directly misleading the people on what happened in those first couple days, the derailment, and then control burned. And I always use air quotes, and that's for a reason that you'll find out. But also that it seems that they either misled or at the very least were not as truthful as they should have been, because we live in the United Corporations of America. Colin, you have to figure out a way to get my camera angle where my seat will not go up further, far enough to get the actual goods in the shot. So I have to keep pulling up the shirt. You can get that at statuscoup.com/store. But I know you want to go to the beach with that, or the lake, or the pool, or whatever you do as the summer comes on. But I think we're going to show. That the EPA misled, and this form of misleading has serious life or death consequences. I'm working on the story. We just want to get some more experts on the record. So we'll have that to you hopefully this week, if not next week. So I wanted to be here yesterday, but I had an appointment go over. I know you went through a lot of the clips. Hopefully we won't go over too many of the same clips. But I wanted to start, if you're okay with it. You interviewed. Actually, no. Let's start with the EPA meeting that you've been getting clips from.
For sure.
More crazy shit that I want to go on a rant. Louis is a little more mild-mannered than I, but hopefully we could get it out of him today. Because the shit that the EPA is saying, it's just, it defies common sense and decency.
Yeah, so I mean, yesterday we went through a meeting that had gone on about a week and a half ago, and then today I went through a meeting that happened last week. The EPA is kind of slow to release these. Last week I was off for a couple days, so I did not have the chance to go through it then. So we went through some of the clips from the EPA meeting yesterday with Mark Durno, absolutely just gaslighting the hell out of everybody in the room over why the vinyl chloride, urine tests, the testing for metabolites for vinyl chloride are wrong. Residents in the room were almost heckling him, saying, oh, sure, all of the EPA's tests are all golden and dandy, but ours are not so much. This meeting wasn't quite as egregious, I'll say, but there were a couple moments that I want to be able to share with us. The first one was in regards to a resident was asking why they should be trusting the surface sampling water results from CTEH. CTEH is the contractor hired by Norfolk Southern. CTEH is handling the water sampling in the area of Leslie Run, Sulphur Run, and they'll get into some of the specifics in here. But the answer that a representative from the Ohio EPA gave to the resident was concerning. Colin, we can go ahead and play that first clip from the latest EPA meeting.
They wanted me to sign a piece of paper that said that I allowed Norfolk Southern and their associates and contractors into my home.
Yes.
That bothered me that said Norfolk Southern. They might be a contractor, but who pays them? Norfolk Southern does. How do you want us to take these results seriously when you're letting the person that did this be the ones that test it?
Well, in my world, in doing this, this is the standard way we address stream surveys. Because if we look at, so in the bigger picture, let's ask this bigger question. They're sending it to a lab that is analyzing it. If Ohio EPA collected these samples, we would be sending them to the same laboratory.
Are they being collected the right way? How do we know
Yes,
that?
we go with them and we watch these things. So part of all these, regardless of who's sampling, part of our job, be it US EPA or Ohio EPA, is to run alongside these folks. So I'm sorry if you don't like it. That's the way it is, and that's the way we're going to deal with it right now.
But when they came in to do my air sampling again, there was someone from the EPA with them. What we've learned since then, Mark said it himself at our meeting, was that wasn't sufficient testing. So the EPA was with CTEH when they came in my home and tested my air at a higher level than they should have been testing. They weren't testing to see if our houses were safe, and the EPA was right next to them.
Okay. Yeah, so Jamie, what I'd recommend, because Bill's got a lot of information to share, and I'm happy to address the questions. We're both happy to address the questions afterwards, but I'd like him to just get through the data part of it, and then we can talk.
I will clue you in and save you the time. They did not get into any more specifics of that question. They conveniently ran out of time to be able to do that at the end of the meeting. The first gentleman who was talking, representative from the Ohio EPA, and then that was Mark Durno, who most of you are familiar with from yesterday's stream and from before. I'm sorry if you don't like it. That's the way it is, Jordan.
First of all, what that was the nice bureaucratic way of saying is, Jamie, kindly shut the fuck up. Yeah, just shut the fuck up, and we'll get to you never. That's what that means. Excuse my French. And I know there's East Palestine people that watch, and I think you'd probably agree that that's how you feel. A lot of them have been talking to you. But there's another clip from, I think you played it yesterday, but I wanted to react to it. Colin, if you have the clip of Mark Durno, he's an EPA official that for some reason he seems like they're like fixer, that they just send him into all these toxic cesspools, usually caused by government or corporate America. And I don't know. I don't know Mark Durno, but I've heard plenty from residents in Flint who feel he's not exactly an upstanding character, has kind of fed them a lot of bullshit and then backtracked on things he claimed when it came to the lead and issues in Flint. But apparently at this meeting, him, who's not a toxicologist, was explaining to them why you don't have to worry, or the urine testing high for vinyl chloride that's cancerous and has clear links to high levels of rare forms of liver cancer, lung cancer, miscarriages in women, neurological problems.
Jordan, he told them it can be caused by lifestyle products. It's lifestyle
Right.
products. That's
Yeah.
why people in East Palestine are testing positive for vinyl chloride. Not the fact that a giant explosion of vinyl chloride happened in most of these people's backyard. No, it's because of the lifestyle products that they're using.
Yeah, sorry if you're going to see this again to the audience, but I want to.
It's worth watching
watch
twice.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colin,
Do we know which number?
clip 4, EPA clip 4 from yesterday's stream?
So the question with vinyl chloride was, the question that some of you have who have had testing done, right? Have the urine test done, and it was always strange to me, not being a health professional. Why are we seeing vinyl chloride or benzene? Shelby mentioned that she had benzene in her urine, right?
A couple people have.
Yeah, and so I'm like, how, that's just, if you have vinyl chloride or benzene in your urine, that, how are you even living?
To do with the train.
How are you even living? And it turns out it's not vinyl chloride and benzene, it's the metabolites that are actually being tested for, the thiodiglycol.
Thiodiglycolic acid,
That, yeah.
which occurs
Yeah.
after the vinyl chloride
So-
is processed through
Yeah.
the system.
So we've been doing some more digging into that, and I think at the end of the day, I think what would be helpful to you all is to have one of these information sessions on public health, right? Right? Because as I've dug into it more, I'm getting the same information that the medical community has been sharing with you.
That's not.
Well, let me tell you what I know, okay, and then let me tell you how that relates to our work, because that's what we're here to report.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the medical community has been sharing with you guys, because you guys haven't. But my medical community is sharing zero information with me. And that is the Ohio Department of Health, who actually brought in a toxicologist to talk to me and left me with zero answers.
Right.
Zero.
Okay.
I got zero.
So, well, hold on. Let me walk through this, and then we can have a
Mark,
discussion.
I'm not leaning on you for this because
I
you're not a
understand.
medical expert.
Right, I'm not.
I'm just asking you to call the company and see if they'll tell you something.
Well, hold that thought, because so with this metabolite, right? And I know you've heard this before, and I know you don't want to hear it again. But with this metabolite, there are several other chemicals. There are several lifestyle products that can create this chemical, right? And so as I've looked into it, I saw two things that I consume, right? I drink alcohol, and I consume vitamin B12, and those are two things.
I don't.
But we
Hold-
gotta
hold
trust
on.
your test.
Not just
We gotta trust the EPA.
We gotta believe
hold on,
every EPA
hold on,
test
hold on, hold on.
is gold,
Let
and
me-
ours gets debunked.
Right, let me go through this, all right? So we know that is not a preferred test for this type of exposure unless it's an acute exposure, all right? And the only potential time may have been an acute exposure would have been the night of the derailment, okay? And 3 to 6 hours, once that derailment happened, the air monitoring teams got on site. And we have an impressive amount of monitoring and sampling data that shows that at least after the first several hours, we didn't see a large acute amount of vinyl chloride getting into the neighborhoods. Now, it doesn't mean that you weren't exposed. We wouldn't try to kid you on something like that.
Did you have some
We
leakage?
know, we know that there were releases. There were absolutely releases, right? And we know that the monitoring network that was set up at the time was not nearly as impressive as it is now. We know that. So was there a potential for exposure? Certainly. Anybody that lived down close to that or was downwind of that could have potentially been exposed to not only vinyl chloride, but some of the other contaminants that were involved in a train derailment. Absolutely.
Will you
Right.
get checked by my doctor for your
So-
urine with it?
So,
Would you do that if you can't call the
So
manufacturer?
hold on. So again, you have to understand the limitations of the test, right? We have to also understand that it requires an acute exposure. The impressive monitoring sampling network that we have on site now does not show, not only does it not show an acute exposure, it doesn't even show an intermediate level exposure. The levels that we're coming back when we do get a vinyl chloride detection are down below a part per billion All right.
Is it storm drains you mentioned?
All right. So, well, hold on. Again, let me finish, and then we can talk about this. And then, so finally, again, I think it would be valuable on this issue to have a public health information session. So we'll look into doing that, seeing when we can do it. I know that.
All right, that's enough.
It continues to get worse, I will tell you. But
Okay.
yeah.
A few things. Number one, he keeps saying that it's only possible to have the vinyl chloride in your system during the acute situation, which I guess to them is the railroad derailment and then controlled burn. But obviously the vinyl chloride combusts into a lot of different byproducts. So that's number one. And number two, as Aaron Brockovich has said over and over, and others will tell you, these contaminants move. So it could be underwater, in the soil, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, you've studied this and become, a quasi-expert. It's not necessarily the only acute exposure
Right.
where maybe for whatever reason you didn't get it right when the derailment happened, but weeks later, if you're in the community and with weather changes or other changes, you're getting it for the first time. And I'd really like to know his PhD in how much shampoo, alcohol,
Cigarettes,
B12,
how many cigarettes you need to smoke.
right, to get a 0.9, which some of these residents have gotten in
Right.
their thiodialic acid, which, yeah, he's right, is the how it's processed. But at the end of the day, it's not normal to have that high levels of vinyl chloride in your system. And the reporting limit, which, I don't expect the residents to know what specific questions to ask, but the reporting limit in the tests were much less than what the residents, and the reporting limit, by the way, is bullshit. It's arbitrarily set anyway. So I don't know why he should just say, I'm not a health expert. But to tell you the truth, judging by some of the text messages that came out that I know you talked about yesterday with the fire chief talking about the health department there, I don't even know if I would go to the health department there to give me health information, because they were telling the local health department there was telling the fire chief, who rightly so was asking, what should I do for my men and women who responded to this? And they were being told by the health department, treat it like any other fire.
Yeah, no, treat it like a house fire was literally what the recommendation from the health department was at the time. And another point I want to make too is it's not that the test. I would be even skeptical if it was the sort of thing where every single person in town tested positive, because frankly a lot of people have left. They don't go back into town. They stay outside of the area where they're not needing to smell it and whatnot. So in talking with Dr. Chai, that interview is posted on the channel if you haven't seen it already. In talking with Dr. Chai for almost an hour, in that recorded interview, he said to me, I've got people who are testing both positive and negative for vinyl chloride. And in both of those groups of positive and negative tests are both people who smoke, people who don't smoke, people who are very healthy, people who are less healthy. So you've got people of kind of differing, you can't say it's from the cigarettes, when unfortunately, Dr. Chai informed me that we've got an 18-year-old athlete in town who tested, or I think it was Chrissy Ferguson who said it, but Dr. Chai confirmed, an 18-year-old athlete in town who isn't smoking cigarettes. He's healthy. He's actually not even sleeping in town. He's just going to school in town, from what I understand. And that person has tested positive for the vinyl chloride metabolite in his urine. So, and then beyond that, Jordan, I mean, we've spoken with an expert on a lot of this stuff quite a bit, trying to decipher everything. It sounds like this test, while it isn't perfect, I'll agree that it's not a perfect test for this sort of thing. However, each individual person who tests positive for this, these guys are going to have to twist themselves into a scientific pretzel to be able to say that it is not related to the derailment. You're telling me, you know what I mean? Where else are these people all going to be getting exposed to this sort of thing?
Right, but also we're talking very technical, right? But the people that are testing at high levels are all sick. So
right.
I don't think they're sick from the B12 that they're taking, or the shampoo, or the cigarettes. dizziness, burning eyes, fatigue, rashes, sore throat, et cetera, sinus stuff. So, at the end of the day, a couple things. Number one, even if everything he was saying was correct, why didn't they test? Why wasn't a priority to do testing for all the residents right in the beginning?
Right.
Yes, you have your evacuation zone for immediate safety, but it's not a town of 200,000 people. It's a town of 4,700 people. Why isn't there an area to test people right then and there? Maybe because if you don't look, you can't find what you're not looking for.
Or start doing it on 3 days after the controlled burn. When everyone was told it was safe to go back into town. Let's even. I've said this a couple times now, but even if they tested 100 residents, you know what I mean? You don't need everybody. Even if you tested 100 residents the week after this happened, and then you continued to test those same 100 residents every week, every 2 weeks, from then until now, we would have so much information. We would have so much information as to the initial exposure that would have been, much higher, and then now the continued exposure as the cleanup process is all taking place, as the streams became super polluted, and then the aeration happened, and all of these different steps. We would have a much, much, much better picture of this entire thing, even if just a subset of the population had been tested for this before. But instead, the CDC comes out and they exclaimed a couple things. One, they were saying that they were worried about how accurate the tests could be. Well, I'm sorry, but the EPA has had a laundry list of tests that we've exposed that are not accurate, and they've themselves said that they're not accurate, including Mark Durno up there, who admitted that the PID devices won't test for butyl acrylate at low enough levels.
By the way, I just want to give people, and I'll try not to make this long. I just want to give people a little 360 degrees big picture on the EPA, because you got to understand who's speaking with you and the history here. So for those Flint aficionados, but in the Flint water crisis, there was a internal EPA whistleblower. His name was Miguel Del Toro, and he was sounding the alarm within the EPA as early 2015 about this city changed their water source and they're not using corrosion control chemicals. The pipes are really old, and this is a real potential hazard for lead poisoning. And he sent a memo about it. This was before it became national news. The residents were complaining at that point, but he was basically told by people above him at the EPA, shh. And finally, from what I remember, he just leaked it. He was basically, took a bureaucratic belt to him for doing that and for exposing it. And he was right. So there is major, not all people in the EPA, but there are higher forces of the EPA that know what they are either covering something up or not looking for certain things, or basically saying the obvious isn't true, resisted this official who wanted to go down to Flint and do the testing. So this is the agency that's talking to you. I'm not saying every person is corrupt. I'm sure there's good people there. I've spoken with some that don't want to go on the record, you as well, because of their professional careers now. But when Mark Durno is talking in front of you and telling you information that really is the difference between life or death, and he's like, yeah, we're digging into it. Well, I don't trust you. I don't know if I trust the CDC. And frankly, how do you just explain to a common sense person that you blow up 5 cars of vinyl chloride and the dioxins that form from that, which you've done great reporting on, and nobody's going to have exposure from it?
Right.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I did like a brief Google search. Yeah, you will have vinyl chloride in your blood for some things like shampoo, B12. They're not at the levels that they're talking about. And I guarantee you, if we went to experts and played that clip, they would tell us that he doesn't know what he's talking about, because he's making it seem like the thiodiagallic acid level isn't actually the core thing to look at when it comes to vinyl chloride. Then why is that coming back in the test?
Right.
Why is that what they're testing for if that's not the important
Right.
thing to look at.
That is the right thing to look at from all of the folks that I've talked to about it. That is the test you would do. Again, like we said, the test isn't perfect. It's something that federal officials, the CDC, the EPA should have kind of advised that should be done early on. That sham clinic that DeWine set up in East Palestine, that clinic should have been doing tests from the beginning for anybody who wanted them and continued to do them, because the test is something that you want to see over time. You know what I mean? How many people over time? How is it changing? And if that information was done at that point, we would know a whole lot more. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it now. And again, the points you made about the EPA there, the CDC seemingly doing the same thing here with their recommendations against it. I mentioned accuracy there. They're also saying, oh, the turnaround times are too long. Like, I'm sorry, like, put the forces of the federal government behind it to make the turnaround times faster. Another thing that they said was lack of clarity in the results. I'm sorry, that doesn't stop the EPA from the lack of clarity in the well water results, where you've got pages with 200 long chemicals in size 8 font with no information as to how to read it. Lack of clarity isn't an issue there, but on this test, that now it's an issue. I'll echo exactly what somebody in the room said when it was like, oh, so we're supposed to trust every single EPA test. They're all golden, but ours is debunked right away. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up.
Right. Before we play the next clip, reminder, folks, money don't grow on trees, and we need more of you to sign up as paid Status Coup members. The summer is coming. We already did one toxic tour. I got sick. Colin was sick. Lewis, being younger and a stronger immune system, has kind of held up for now. But we really want to get back on the road. And honestly, what we're going to show you in the next segment with Kalamazoo, which is now gaining traction because of our reporting. And I think what Lewis has done in East Palestine, even though it has not, cracked the code yet, the very least has kept it somewhat in the news, is very, very important. And to break news, to keep this in the news, to tell people's stories involves going there. I would have not been able to break a lot of the things that I've broken on Kalamazoo, which we're going to play more recordings in a little bit that show the very government officials in Michigan now who are pretending, oh my God, this toxic paper mill, this is our top priority. We need to lower the amount of toxic gases they're releasing into a poor Black community. Well, we have them on tape from years ago, basically telling residents, too bad. It's not a big deal. So please, we're going for over 100 paid members this month. Right now, we've gained 59 paid members. A lot of that thanks to Lewis's reporting. I don't know if you have the meter, Colin. We've gained 59. So the deal is sign up, $5 to $10 a month. We got 4 signups yesterday. We'd love to get a bunch more today. $5 to $10 a month. If we keep growing at this rate, where we're picking up, 75 to 100 a month, obviously we'd love more, but our viewers are working class people. So we don't expect, everybody to be able to sign up. But for those that can sign up at $5 to $10 a month, this week is an extra perk. We're going to be doing our members only call. I don't know if you guys got back to me. I'm hoping we could do it Friday night because that was what folks wanted. Lewis has a very busy nightlife, so I don't know if he could join, but we'll see.
I'll join for at least a bit. I'll be there.
We did a
poll.
poll.
My commitment. I'll be there.
Friday night, 7:00 Eastern. So if more people could sign up, we'll have even bigger members call. We're doing it this Friday, 7:00 Eastern through Zoom. So if you're a member through our website or Patreon or YouTube, you'll get the email link to join our members call. We do it at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, usually go for an hour or two. We'll have plenty to say in this one, particularly after I went to Flint and Kalamazoo. Lewis went to East Palestine again, and talk about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff we're working on right now. So statuscoup.com/join. I'll give you a shout-out if you sign up while we're live. And it might sound like nothing. And I have heard people even said yesterday, one person said, oh, Jordan, I was kind of being lazy and, I just didn't feel like it. But Lewis convinced me yesterday. So I know some of you fall on that where you're able to, but you're just kind of not ready to pull the trigger. Pull it for real journalism. $5 a month equals 16 cents a day. $10 a month equals 33 cents a day. You ask the people of East Palestine who has been there for them. Same thing goes for Flint and other communities. It is us, Status Coup. So Is there any clips you prefer to play next?
Do you want to stick? I have one more clip from the EPA meeting we could play, or we can move into some of the clips from the East Palestine interviews as well.
Yeah, I wanted to play. You had interviewed Christina, I believe it was, who lived 6 or 7 miles away and was having health problems. I don't know what number of clip that is, but
Colin, do we have that one?
I'll find it. Hold on.
Gotcha.
Like you could see the smoke from here.
Is that the right one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It said she lives in Pennsylvania, 6, 7 miles away. Yeah.
Like you could see the smoke from here, and as evening came, it's weird that they did it when they did it to me, because it got dark not long after they did it.
Right.
And so, like at midnight, I went outside, and you couldn't see the moon and the stars. And the wind was supposed to be blowing in our direction then. And then at like 2 a.m, I went out and you could see the moon and the stars. And the wind had shifted direction going towards Chippewa and the town of Darlington.
Yep.
And up towards Enon Valley. But so numerous times I've gone to people and said, hey, that wind blew towards us. And they're like, they've even heard from the government saying that South Beaver, where we're actually at, we weren't affected. But how are you not affected when the wind is blowing towards you? The creeks, they run down this way.
Right.
And then there's also been fracking under the ground that went all directions. So then you also see this plume.
Right.
And how are you not affected? And then you're sick.
Right. Yeah. So I guess to the health side of it. I mean, have you or any of your family, close friends, how have the symptoms been for you? Have you experienced? I guess what did you experience initially when it first happened, and is anything kind of been more persistent and will continue to flare up?
On February 5th, I started getting sick, so that's the day before the controlled burn.
Gotcha.
And I started with just a cough, a slight cough. And
at that point, too, I mean, there's still a lot of fire and smoke coming from this, as chemicals were burning already at that point. But go ahead, sorry.
And so I started with a cough, and then a bit of a headache. And then right after they did the burn, I was coughing nonstop and migraine, and that I had a migraine and coughing, a sore throat, congestion in here. My ears felt like they had pressure in them, and that lasted every day until maybe last week. And
wow. So that's, I mean,
that's a long time.
Yeah.
And the when you go to the doctor, they'll say to you, did you do a COVID test? I've done 3 COVID tests. It's not COVID.
Right.
But so they ended up, I went to the doctor 4 times, and they ended up diagnosing me with upper respiratory infection and exposure to chemicals that are non-occupational. And then off and on through that time too, my son had a lot of coughing and runny nose. Here and there he'd get a redness around his mouth and his nose. But then for a few days in there we had vomiting, diarrhea, and whenever you go up to town, or we were in New Galley one day, and New Galley's pretty far away. And you can, especially in New Galley, as soon as we stepped out of the car, you could smell stuff, smell chemicals, and then we ended up I ended up pretty sick that night with like nausea. My stomach was hurting. And then you could, different places you go and even different days you go, you can taste chemicals on your lips or in your mouth.
6 miles away. 6 miles away, and they won't test their water.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been there. You've been to the parts in Pennsylvania. Again, if you're not testing all the wells, if you're only testing within a certain radius, this would be the equivalent of like, and I don't think it's dramatic to say, Chernobyl happening and only like testing for 2 miles. You think that would happen?
No, of course not. Yeah, I mean, well, you wouldn't think it would happen, but it basically is happening. The smoke plume went right over Pennsylvania, right through her area and others' areas who are fighting to get it. I actually got an update from Christina on some of this. I'm going to look at a text here, so don't mind me for a second. But so she hasn't, still to this day, hasn't been able to have any water testing done. She was continuing to try to do it at the place in Darlington, Pennsylvania, where you can go to the state to try to get it done. They were saying that they still would not be testing outside of the 2 mile area. However, she has now been able to connect with Dr. Andrew Welton, who we've talked about quite a bit, from Purdue University. And they have now conducted some independent tests through Dr. Welton and some of the volunteers from Purdue University. No results from that yet, but I'm glad that Christina was able to get this some sort of testing done. It's ridiculous to me that it's needing to go through independent testing that's being done essentially on a volunteer basis. But she has now had the test done. I'm sure she'll update us when we get some results. I'm also curious to see Dr. Welton on Twitter has been posting some updates as far as results. It sounds like they're processing quite a bit from their last trip. So we'll likely get another kind of round of independent test results from the crew from Purdue University. So that'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely. By the way, I wanted to give shout outs. This is from yesterday, but Gregory, Stephen, Greg, and Diana signed up as Status Coup members. So this is what we're talking about. If we get more people signing up, we'll be able to send Lewis back to East Palestine. Tina and I are also talking about her going back to Georgia to cover Cop City, which there is more momentum now building against this fucking police compound in the woods of Georgia. Again, right on top of a black neighborhood. It seems to have a pattern here. We went to cover it a couple months ago, but to tell you the truth, when you're a small, lean and mean operation, we're about to spend $15,000 on a live view. So we'll have a second live view so we can cover more things. Live view is what we broadcast with. But we got to make choices, and sometimes we can't go on that extra trip that month because the other 2 trips already cost like $7-8 grand, which the last 2 trips did. So you might think it's nothing, but the more people that sign up, it adds up. Also, I am talking to some people trying to get larger funding, not from, corporate villains, but from people that are aligned with us. So it helps to show them, hey, we have a strong base of right now. I think we're hovering around 2,000 paid members from all the different buckets, our website, Patreon, Substack, etc. So if you're on the fence, statuscoup.com/join.
And I'll add to that too, saying like, so if you look at independent media on YouTube, especially, you're going to get a long list of people who are only sitting in a studio, never go out and do any sort of actual boots on the ground, go talk to real people in the places where news and tragic events are actually happening. That's absolutely what sets us apart. I'd challenge you to go look at a lot of these other independent outlets and see who actually goes out and puts in the legwork to do it. And I think you're going to find a short list. There are others, right? But it's rare. It's a rare breed of people who are actually going out. And I'll say, I mean, I've been learning quite a bit doing this with Jordan now. I've been working with Jordan and Colin for about the last year now. And my perspective on so many things has changed by actually being in some of these places, seeing how absolutely outrageous it actually is, going to East Palestine, feeling like you're in the Twilight Zone, and wondering, are we actually in the United States of America? Is this real? So a lot of the folks sitting in their studios don't have any comprehension of the lived experience of so much of the United States. And the only way you're going to do that and
stop
get
calling
real
it that.
Accounts, yes, United Corporations of America. There you go. The only way you're going to get real accounts of it is from people and organizations who will actually go on the ground, meet these people where they are, to be able to help share the real lived experience that's happening here.
And by the way, my rant, because we did headline this rant, my rant is coming because there is a shit fuck reporter from Michigan. There's a shit little fucker from Michigan, a reporter. If he's watching this, I'm gonna have words for you, who challenged my Johnny come lately reporting in Kalamazoo. So we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. Yeah. So something that stood out to me also about what she's talking about is the plume. Again, like Erin Brockovich, I think, says it very well. She just breaks it down for common sense. Like they saw it where they were 6 miles away. So you don't need like to be a chemist or a weatherman to understand that it's coming your way. So again, I think from day one, and I've talked to people in the EPA that tell me this is the playbook, is just to minimize things and to not. They say it's to not have a not create a panic. Well, maybe you do need to create a panic if there's something to panic about. I mean, I'm sorry, maybe you do need to create a panic because it's like, for example, when they say if somebody gets kidnapped, the first 48 hours is the most important if you're going to get them back alive. Well, if people get nuked, the first couple days is very important in terms of exposure. And if you're getting the honest answers about how far and wide should evacuate, what you were just exposed to could be the difference between having cancer 5 to 10 years down the line, lifelong problems, miscarriages, etc. So no, don't like panic people for no reason, but it's the same thing. The Indiana plastics plant that exploded, Lewis.
Yeah.
They say that Inferno. It was, what was that? Hydrogen cyanide, which is lethal to
hydrogen
inhale.
Cyanide, benzene, all sorts of stuff.
But they said, no, we only found it within the half mile radius. All right. So it's like Harry Potter waves his wand and it stops at the magical wall at a half mile. Give me a break. And you would hope that these are not all sociopaths and psychopaths that are just lying to people. And I don't think they all are. But I think from people I've spoken with in and out of the EPA, these people make some really weird rationalizations for things. So
no, you're right. They absolutely are. They're twisting themselves in a pretzel to back up the way we do it. That was one thing I meant to mention it earlier on when that Ohio EPA gentleman was saying, well, no, we're not changing it. This is the way we do it. Well, have you ever looked at the way you do it? Are you open to potentially changing the way you do it? Because I'm sorry, just because it's the way that it's been done doesn't mean that it's the right way. And in so much of this, it's absolutely abundantly clear to me that the way that we do things needs to be looked at in all of these three-letter agencies that have, bungled disaster after disaster after disaster with seemingly no end in sight.
Correct. I thought another good clip would be the hold on. Yeah, the one with Eric and his fiance. Eric, we showed this a few weeks ago, but Eric recorded his encounter with his local health care provider, who were basically telling him the CDC is urging us not to do testing for vinyl chloride. Him and his fiance were, I think, 900 feet or a couple hundred yards from the derailment.
They're not far.
Yeah.
They're like a block away, essentially. Yep.
Let's hear their experience.
That's clip 2 in the EP clips column.
I talked to so many chemists and toxicologists. They threw up vitamin B12. They threw up shampoos, deodorants. Me smoking a half a pack of cigarettes a day, which is in the nanograms. You would have to smoke 20 packs of cigarettes a day
to test positive.
To test positive, even at any level. That's not even saying what the reporting level was 0.5. 2 months out, the EPA changed that and lowered it down to a 0.2. That's all on camera, him saying that. So there's still, there's people testing now as high as 0.9.
Right. Yeah, and that's I spoke with resident Chrissy Ferguson yesterday, and hers was in the 0.9. It was the highest I had seen.
Yes.
It doesn't surprise me, unfortunately, when she works close to the tracks. She was close to it. Her backyard is self-run, essentially. Fortunately, she's been able to stay away from there for now. But she spends a lot of time in town because of her work. And, just like many other people who are, whether they're staying in town every day at night or not, they're still having to come here for work. Kids having to come for school. Things like this. So,
when I talked to the toxicologist, we have to get
and this
tested.
is from Columbiana County.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
we have to, and this is just not them. This is everybody that I talked to. We have to get tested more than once. This store's in our fat. This store's in our fat. I'm kind of a bigger guy. So we might test 0.5 today, and tomorrow go take the same exact test and test at 0.9. It depends on what our body's releasing.
So piggybacking off of that, we did a news conference yesterday, and someone there, she actually had a second test.
Okay.
And it was double what it was originally.
Yes.
So,
And these are the vinyl chloride urine
This
tests,
is the vinyl chloride. So, and she lives at ground zero,
right.
pretty much.
And it's tricky because the CDC in their guidelines, I read through some of them yesterday, and I've read through them a bit before. We have like a couple bullet points it was actually from a document that Senator Sherrod Brown's staff had put together for him for a meeting with residents in East Palestine a couple weeks ago. We got the document, and a couple of the points that they outline as to why the CDC is saying for some reason that you shouldn't get this test. A couple of the main points were the data is difficult to interpret. You can say that that's a joke because all of the testing data that has been provided to you all by the EPA, by other federal agencies, has been extremely confusing. Some of these things I'm giving them to chemists with PhDs, and folks like Dr. Welton are looking at them themselves and having to answer questions for people like you all. Even folks like Dr. Welton, other sources I'm talking to are saying this is very confusing. This is taking these experts a lot of time to go through them. So difficult to interpret should not be a reason not to do a test.
So you get the positive, right? Okay, so he tested positive. Doctor says, call the toxicologist. So you call the toxicologist. They tell you to call
Poison control.
Poison control. Poison control sends you to CDC. CDC sends you somewhere else. No one is giving us answers to what now. So now we're positive.
Now what?
I went down and took my test results.
Can you share? They both are having health problems.
Yep, they've both had all sorts of health problems. Lori in particular has had a lot of skin issues, bad headaches. I think Eric mentioned, bloody noses. Both of them, I think, bloody noses. Many of the similar symptoms that we've heard. Again, they're just kind of like one street setback from where the train tracks are. Other residents on their streets that I've spoken with as well. Breathing issues, needing nebulizer treatments after never having breathing, complications before. Right now, I was actually, seeing in some of the East Palestine groups, the smell is pretty prevalent again as the weather's warming up. They're also currently, they're in the process of cleaning up the other side of the tracks at the moment. So these are still ongoing effects. Folks are still unwell. Lori there actually had, and I need to follow up with her to see. She actually is the first person I've seen, in addition to her doctor prescribing her with a vinyl chloride metabolite urine test. She also has tests coming for phosgene as well as benzene. It's the first time I had seen that, but her doctor is concerned enough to say, yep, I think we need to have a phosgene and a benzene test done for you as well. So I had not heard. I've heard of others, doing the benzene tests. One of them, I believe, Shelby Walker. She actually tested positive for benzene, and at that point, officials tried to say that it was the fire pit in her backyard. So, yes. Yeah.
Brandon, thank you, my friend. Likes the guy's attitude. I've been subbed and I get paid Friday, so I'll send a little something. Don't send a little something. Send a monthly something. StatusCoup.com/join. $5 a month. That's all we're asking. Thanks, Brandon. Couple things. and we are going to move on soon because we got new information on Kalamazoo, which, listen, we're not taking victory laps here, but you do the math. The Michigan Health Department sat on their fucking ass for years. They delayed this health study for 3 years. It took them to do this, to release it at least. They ignored residents. I have the email showing that they were blowing off residents. Little old me and Colin went over there. Our Twitter clip got like 50,000 views. Then we did a video for Breaking Points, which I don't know how much it has now. It was at 55,000 views. People were shaming the governor, the health department. All of a sudden, they released the health study. So you tell me whether our work made a difference. But Eric and what she's talking about there, she's describing somebody that got tested again, and I think she knows. I think I know who they're talking about. Somebody who got tested again for vinyl chloride, and it doubled.
Right.
So that shows there's two possibilities. One, the first test was wrong, maybe, or two, they're continually getting recontaminated. Bob Bocock, who is Aaron Brockovich's partner, he is a water expert, ran water treatment for 30 years, was instrumental in exposing the truth in Flint, knows quite a bit about soil and other things. He said when this first broke in East Palestine, it's not only ground zero that day, they're getting recontaminated every day. That's why I find it highly dubious when non-toxicologist Mark Durno acts like the only acute exposure or the only exposure to worry about is during the original derailment. Yeah, I don't think anybody could definitively say that. And then there's the dioxins and other things. But if people are retesting and it's doubling, what did they have? Double the shampoo? Did they have 50? Right. 50? Why does fucking Comcast call me every time I'm live? So every time I'm live, it's like they're watching because this monopoly of an internet provider, as you can see, my internet's fucked up, and they keep calling me when I'm live. I'll have to call them back. Anyway, long story short, how is it doubling unless you would need to have a lot of shampoo, a lot of B12, and all that. Any takeaways from that?
No, I mean, it's outrageous that, again, it's now been over 3 months where we're still not getting answers. The gaslighting is getting worse, if anything, not better. It's getting worse. I will say the EPA is now, they actually did put on the schedule. There is going to be a meeting, another one of these like kind of town hall meetings with somebody from, I forget it, it's going to be a health expert at the meeting brought in by EPA. So that is definitely, we'll be sure to clip some of that out and we'll be able to talk about that. I don't know if it's next week or the week afterwards. I'm sure residents are going to have a lot of questions at that one. And yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens there. But the fact that the health concerns are not being taken seriously in any real way is concerning. Again, it's not even just residents bringing up these concerns. A month ago, members of the CDC, the actual CDC, were in East Palestine, got sick. They left. They admitted that they got sick. CNN actually reported on it. And they haven't been back since, from what I can tell. So, it can't be any more clear than that. People are definitely getting sick. I had seen it in person with the residents myself. I experienced a little bit of the symptoms as well myself. But the fact that the CDC actually went there, got sick, and left, and then, now all of their concerns are being dismissed, and their positive vinyl chloride tests are being thrown out as, these tests aren't good, these tests aren't good. It's outrageous. So, I'll definitely reach out here too to Lori. I'm curious to hear if she's gotten results back from her vinyl chloride test, because at that point Eric had only tested positive. Lori was just getting ready to do her tests. So we'll see if Lori also tested positive for vinyl chloride as well as the benzene and phosgene test that she'd been prescribed.
Absolutely. Lewis, thank you. I know you got stuff to do. By the way, we are working on a story on the EPA, which I think to most people is going to make it clear that the EPA has been lying to the people of East Palestine for quite some time, basically since the beginning of this, about what actually was done in terms of the release or the control burn of these chemicals. So stay tuned for that. I'm working on the story, but my goddamn 6-month-old child is teething up a storm. And I'm not sleeping. And I had to take her today to the doctor and tomorrow. And it's a whole thing. And I am now going to the back doctor 3 days a week to try and prevent a third back surgery. So I'm doing something called spinal decompression for any of you cripples like I. And it's a long process. They do the decompression, which is 20 minutes, and then stem, which is like electrodes in your back, and then laser, and then an adjustment. And I got to do it 3 days a week. And at first I thought it was a scam, like, all right, they just want you to come in as much. But it was a flat rate. Insurance wouldn't cover it. So I'm just trying to do it to avoid another surgery. Ron Placone, Comcast is whack. Mini broadband now. You damn right. So anyway, thank you, Louis. And Louis, I believe, will be back on tomorrow. So we shall see you then.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. So don't go anywhere, because now we're going to move west to Michigan for another corrupt, abysmal scandal. Joining me back again is Brandi Crawford. You were living in Kalamazoo, but because of the graphic packaging paper mill that you were basically fighting alone, yes, other residents were upset, but you were basically the main activist for many years. Graphic Packaging is a multi-billion-dollar international company. They're based in Atlanta. A lot of beer bottles and food packaging is Graphic Packaging. And they have a paper mill that was releasing the worst smell I've ever smelled. People, the devil's advocate, would say, yeah, Jordan, there's paper mills around the country. They all smell. Well, this was something different because I was there. But more importantly than the smell was the effect. High levels of asthma, people dying in this neighborhood, COPD, cancers, etc. So you were as early as 2017, 2018, complaining. Other residents were complaining. And then the health department was getting back to you. So give people the background before we play these recordings. They were basically telling you our investigation is showing relatively small odor and no problem here.
Right. And then I just didn't believe them. So I asked everybody outright, like Graphic Packaging, the City of Kalamazoo Wastewater Plant, and Eagle, like, what's going on here? And everyone just kept blaming each other. So I did a Freedom of Information request and found that they had these gas studies done in 2009, 2020, and that they were actually monitoring for hydrogen sulfide in 2019, but none of us were ever notified of that. So I immediately called lawyers, I tried to call this environmental reporter and beg him to like look at my FOIA requests, and he really didn't want to do it for a while. So I got Public Media Network, which is like, like one of those local student network type of things, but they're also funded by the City of Kalamazoo County, but they let me do a public service announcements. They went door to door with me because I told them like I went door to door and everybody had asthma like I did.
I just want to drill that in. So the local reporters there did not go door to door. It was you, shall I say, middle class to low income, average Joe or Jane, knocking on doors, seeing how people are being affected health wise by this toxic paper mill, not the journalists. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but it's not just for journal. It's not just the journalists. It's the fact that the City of Kalamazoo officials wouldn't go door to door. The state health department wouldn't go door to door. Eagle wouldn't go door to door. Nobody would, like, to try to correlate this. And then I had to get these doctors, like an epidemiologist and a toxicologist, to help me do reports to try to show the state and the city how severe this was in 2020. And they all ignored me. It's like fighting a David versus Goliath war, because they try to gaslight me so much. And I just started CCing them all together on emails. So they all knew I was talking to every single agency, ATSDR, EPA, MDHHS, Eagle, City Kalamazoo officials, like, everyone, even Health and Human Services, not like everyone, like federal, state, local, everybody. And then, some reporters wanted to help and some didn't. A lot of people just... I wouldn't say that everyone wouldn't care, but I'm telling you, that's what it felt like to me. But like, I know a lot of people have bosses.
There's a difference between caring and doing something about it. You can care about something, but not actually be aggressive, whether you're a government official or a journalist, to actually change it, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I wanted to, for those that didn't see it, Colin and I were in Kalamazoo. We reported in front of the plant. We spoke with many residents. A bunch of our stuff we haven't even published yet because we have a backlog. So there's going to be more stuff from Kalamazoo that we publish over the next couple days. But the Michigan Health Department, you were sending our reports, which we're getting around on social media and et cetera. One of them got like 50,000 views, a lot of outrage and pissed off people. Like, what the fuck is going on here? We showed the story of Deanne Winfield, who tragically her 17-year-old daughter died of a severe asthma attack. Her asthma got a lot worse living near that plant.
Like everywhere. Like, and yeah, she's just someone that's willing to speak out about it. But like a lot of families are like hers.
Right. So it kind of, there's been some articles about it that just like repeat whatever the graphic packaging or the government announced, but not a lot of the actual human toll that's been happening. So suddenly the Michigan Health Department about a week or two ago released their long delayed study showing, I don't think their findings were everything. They really focused on hydrogen sulfide, but better than nothing. They admitted, yes, the paper mill that you and others have been complaining about has been releasing hydrogen sulfide at far, far higher than the regulatory level that can have health effects. And what do you know, Brandi? All of a sudden, they released this study, the city of Kalamazoo, that, from what you guys told us, were laughing at residents who complained in meetings. Suddenly,
or ignoring us, like not even saying, like responding. Even if someone calls them the trach in their throat. Who are these people? Like, who says that as a commissioner? Like, when you have someone calling it the trach in their throat, begging for their life. Like, come on.
Right. Let's show this article, Colin. So now, all of a sudden, they're saying it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Lowering toxic gas levels must be top priority, Kalamazoo leaders say. Loose on the leaders. Kalamazoo city commissioners are increasing the urgency of their words while speaking about handling potentially dangerous pollution around the city's north side neighborhood. Again, I don't know why they're saying potentially dangerous. I mean, it's dangerous.
They already said hazardous on the report.
Right. So it's just, this is MLive, which we'll get to that later.
But Brad, it's not Brad's fault. Okay. I would say Garrett, but yeah, he's done it. He's done a lot of reporting.
Okay, we'll get to Garrett. Vice Mayor Don Cooney said the air quality issue should be at the top of the city's agenda. This is a public health emergency, he's now saying.
I'm so happy he finally admitted it, because I've been saying it for 3 years at every city meeting that has anything to do with graphic packaging. I have said this, like, they would not listen. I've given them toxicology reports saying there's a severe health risk, and none of them did anything. The Vice Mayor Cooney just came back, but he was there in 2009 when they did the first study too. So I'm glad he's saying something now, but I'm wondering, why didn't they do anything in 2009 when they found out that they had gas leaks at the wastewater plant and graphic packaging? These are the major sources of the emissions right now. You have malfunctioning pipes. You have open air wastewater clarifiers, and you're processing toxic chemicals and gases. Come on, man. Like, this is not rocket science. Just fix your shit.
Suddenly, now he's saying it's unacceptable. People in our community live in this kind of condition. We have to find a way to deal with this, Cooney said, drawing some applause from the small crowd in the commission chambers. The devil's advocate can say, well, Jordan, don't pummel them now. At least they're doing something. No, let's fucking pummel them. Because how many people have died or gotten severe asthma or COPD or associated cancers that are going to coming? There's your inhaler. When I was there, everybody's using an inhaler because this actual Johnny come lately didn't seem to care, even though it's not like they weren't getting complaints. It's not like they didn't know about this. They were getting complaints. They had the studies. 1,950 Black infants under the age of 1. Let's just round it. Almost 2,000 Black infants under the age of 1. Majority of Black residents live on the north side in this neighborhood. Died in 2015. Then mysteriously, the county of Kalamazoo stopped publishing the statistics on their website. So I don't know how many people were dying after that, but at least in 2015, it was 5 times the rate of white infants. And most of the Black population lives in this neighborhood near the plant. There's a major problem when the majority of people, city commissioners, the mayor, they don't live in this neighborhood. and it's not just unique to Kalamazoo. There's a lot of these fucking government officials who don't give a shit until they're exposed for not giving a shit, and it gets a spotlight, and then suddenly they care. This happened in Flint, where congresspeople, senators, state representatives were getting complaints. You were blown off by the state representative in the state assembly,
All of them,
the state senator. Yes.
All of them.
So
and the governor's office. Don't act like it didn't contact attorney. That's what I'm saying. Governor Whitmer, come on. Like, seriously, just declare this a public health emergency. You know it is. And continuing to ignore it's only going to make you look worse. It's going to make everyone look worse if you just don't do the right thing. Like, that's all I'm asking you to do. If I was the governor right now, if I was Big Gretch right now, that's what everybody from our neighborhood called you when they voted for you in your first term, then I would want to help people. I wouldn't want to just ignore this. Like, this is not a huge public health emergency in the state of Michigan, like one of the worst ones ever. And you're the governor. And you, an attorney general, like, she's like suing other paper mills. Like, what the hell? What is it about graphic packaging? Really? What is it?
She's not just the governor. She's the governor who her administration helped this multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerate expand.
I know, but she did.
The city of Kalamazoo.
But you know what? She made a freaking huge ass fucking mistake. But you know what? We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes, right? That's still not an excuse for her not to do anything. Everyone makes mistakes. So you know what? Just chalk it up. Like, come forward. You made a mistake. You shouldn't have expanded this plant. You should have done more research. The agencies should have been more connected. Eagle should have told you that this was a hazardous plant. They were out of compliance for years. There was gas leaks. Eagle, I don't know if she knew or not. Like, I don't know the full story about. I'm assuming that she knows everything now. So, like, I'm just saying, even if people hid things, like,
Brandi,
now everyone knows everything.
God bless your kind soul. But this was not a mistake. Knowing what I know about Michigan government, Governor Whitmer and her people, they knew about the complaints. The health department knew. By the way, this is the governor that kept in place the same high-level executives at the state health department and the state environmental department that were there under the previous governor, who presided over the biggest environmental calamity possibly in American history, with Kalamazoo coming close now. So what I'm saying is, you don't just not realize when you approve $125 billion bond deal that helped them expand in 2022. You don't just not forget all these complaints coming and the high rates. They're all coming. But I want to get to, because it seems like there was a local effort to keep this quiet or to do nothing. Colin, let's play the first clip. It's a shorter clip. It's about a minute and 33. And this is a former city commissioner. This was a public meeting, so it's not a secret recording or anything. But she's saying that basically she was told to shh about this. This is from 2020.
I guess I appreciate that there's, this task force. I'm a little bit confused how long the task force has been convened. Having served on the commission now for a few years, I'm aware that this subject matter has come up repeatedly as it relates to the stank, near the corners of Riverview and Patterson. And it bleeds into the north side and it bleeds into the east side. And on a really good, dense, foggy day, it bleeds into my home, several blocks away over on Forbes Street. And we've been talking about this for a while. And at one point I was told, this is a sensitive subject because of our relationship with graphic packaging. I've been told that, the wastewater treatment center has the technologies in place to deal with smell. And so I guess I'm just confused why we would even consider a resolution like this right now until we have the data and we understand the source of the smell. Because this is not an isolated incident. We have a large chunk of our community, particularly in the summer months, that it's offensive to be outside. And we have folks that don't have the luxury of air conditioning like I have. So you open your windows and you're out on your porch and it is a debilitating smell. And I don't know where Commissioner Urban was going with his comments, but it's hard for me to accept that we just can't figure out when there are two major industries over in that area that would be, I guess, potential sources of the smell, the treatment center as well as graphic packaging.
you heard it there, and kudos to her. At least she's speaking up about it, or did. But she's basically saying, I was told to be, quiet about this because we have financial ties, the city, with graphic packaging. I assume
she also was the only one that didn't vote for the $21 million tax rate for graphic packaging too. She just didn't speak up.
Right.
Like she actually just abstained or didn't even come to the meetings where she just stopped coming to meetings that had graphic packaging, or she just didn't vote.
But to me, what's significant about this, and she's no longer a commissioner. She never, as far as I know, she didn't elaborate who told her to shush. We could kind of, it's not a huge.
I know who.
Oh, go ahead. Mayor?
The mayor. He's come on, everyone listens to him like he's God or something. Just like they did his best friend Bobby Hopewell, the ex-mayor. Come on. And the city, you could just see, you can see his reaction to even the vice mayor in that city. I don't know if you're to play that clip or not, but that you said the vice mayor saying, this is a public health emergency, saw his face, he was annoyed.
Well, that's why it's so important, because here you have, kind of revisionist history where they're suddenly acting, the mayor, the vice mayor, the city commissioners. This is a top priority. This is a public health emergency. No, well, it is because you got caught doing nothing. But when it was quiet, you wanted to keep it that way, which tells me they knew there was public. They knew people were getting sick, and they looked the other way. So
they knew for a long time. That's why they did the first gas study. I found out, I didn't move there until that neighborhood until 2012 because of the Kalamazoo Promise. And that's why a lot of people moved to Kalamazoo, because they have the Kalamazoo Promise, which if your kid graduates from a Kalamazoo public high school, they get free college, at pretty much any university in Michigan. So I should have wondered, too, these are private donors, whatever, come on, that's another way. Was everybody moving away because of the pollution? And then that's the way how you got everyone back? Or you didn't tell everybody in 2009 that you did a gas study? Why did you keep this a secret? If you had a bunch of odor complaints and that's why you did the gas study, then why didn't you tell everybody that you did this, that you found, gas leaks, and that you were going to fix it? Instead, you didn't fix it or replace it, really, is what you should have done. Because, come on, you're having how many gallons, thousands of gallons of toxic waste coming through a pipe? You can't fix that shit. You're replacing it. Who wouldn't do that, So why didn't they do that then? And they didn't tell us. So it's I would have never moved there, because I moved there for the Kalamazoo Promise, so my son could get free college. And that's what a lot of people did. And I feel like we were all duped or whatever, because it's it just seemed, if they would have put that on the news, hey, this is the odor. There's people at the hospital, Borges Hospital employees, they lived with this 20 years. Right. So they were poisoned. This is graphic packaging, sending out these statements. And today we've been in Kalamazoo for 100 years. We're a community partner and killing people, assholes. Really?
Right.
Come on. So think about the people at the hospital too. They go there to have surgery. Are you going to get well when you're poisoned?
Right. So now I want to play a recording. This, I believe, is from either 2020 or 2021. You speaking with a official with the state environmental department, the same state environmental department that covered up the Flint water crisis. I've seen emails with you and this official. Her name is Monica, and it seems that she's basically saying that they're in the way they investigate whether there's toxic gases coming from the plant is simply to go down, drive around, and
it's not funny, but it's crazy.
Take a smell test. So this is how the state of Michigan's environmental department seems to be testing, sending out one official, which I know a lot of these environmental officials don't actually have expertise in what they're supposed to be dealing with.
I know.
But basically go around and
a gemologist that they hired.
Right.
What are you doing? Who are you hiring? Come on. Yeah.
But this official in emails basically said, well, I went around and I didn't smell it too bad, so it's got to be fine.
But it's okay if it's giving everybody headaches, burning eyes, asthma attacks, just because it's not giving you that. But I feel like even her brain must be messed up from coming out there so many times, because all these gases cause mental health issues. Maybe she's crazy now because she's just been around these gases so much. I'm trying to how there's no way. Or maybe your nose is so fucked up that you can't even smell anymore.
Well, it also could be Colin and I were there for 3 days. We had it. And then when we left, like,
And
you know,
who's
a week or
got
two
your
later.
inhaler again? And I haven't
Right.
used this in how long? But I had to go back to the scene of the crime to try to bring awareness to save lives because everybody in the government is sitting on their fucking ass, acting like there's nothing going on. Like this is
Right.
this is a freaking movie and it's not real life, and they don't have to do their jobs and they can just sit on their ass and collect $100,000 a year paychecks and not do shit to protect people, even though that's what they took an oath to do. Every single person involved in this, like, this is insane.
So this one is with the environmental official who you will hear before this broke in the news recently, and they finally acknowledged that this paper mill is releasing toxic gases. Let's hear how she kind of described the seriousness of this. This is the 6-minute or so clip, Colin.
Was why didn't, like, you know, I told you guys about, like, the civil rights complaints that I filed against the city of Kalamazoo. I know a lot of the stuff that's going on in the EPA might not be at your level, but above you, and you might be being told certain things to do or not do, and so
what is the EPA's enforcement process? We didn't take over from the EPA. We kind of work with them, but there are certain state rules that we have to apply that they don't.
Look, I guess, like, when the EPA does enforcement, they, like, give, like, really big fines, like, per day until the issue is fixed. And it seems like Eagle doesn't, like, they haven't fined Graphic Packaging or the wastewater plant ever that I know of.
We're still in the process of that. That is definitely still on the table.
But why? It's been, like, you guys have had, like, hundreds of air complaints, and you've had, like, violations over a 10-year period. Like, why would it take, or no, 11 years, I think. Why would it take 11 years to do enforcement on 2 facilities next door to each other?
When we went to enforcement with them in 2019, before we can implement anything in a consent order and figure out what we're going to force them to do, we kind of had to do some research about where the odors were coming from and how best to mitigate those odors. And those studies take a lot of time.
Did you give them a fine when they got...
But
did you...
we are still, it's not like we're just sitting on our hands. We have been doing a lot of work surrounding this issue, and the enforcement isn't over, and they are going to get fined.
So you say you're saying the enforcement process started in 2019, but they've had violations before 2019. So why wasn't there any enforcement done when they had violations before?
So basically, we took them to enforcement because of the violations. There were about 5 of them that happened within a 2-year period, and at that point, we were like, okay, they're clearly not being, you know, they're not doing their good faith effort to try to fix this issue. The violations before that, which I think there were only 3 prior to that, were like 1 every year maybe, and they were like, okay, so we're going to try this thing to fix it. So it took the violations, the 5 violations within that short period of time, and the lack of cooperation by Graphic Packaging for us to take them to enforcement. So it's a slow process, but we have gotten them to the table on an enforcement process. And that's,
what about the wastewater plant?
What's that?
What about the wastewater plant? Are you planning to do any enforcement with them?
No, they don't have anything that I have ever traced back to them in terms of odor. Usually if I go out to a complaint, I can usually trace it back to Graphic Packaging. That's why we're not in enforcement with the Kalamazoo Wastewater Treatment Plant. The Kalamazoo Wastewater Treatment Plant is also voluntarily doing a lot of odor mitigation activities without us even having to ask.
Is that why you waited 10 years to inspect them? Because you thought they were doing their processes right?
They are considered a minor source of air pollutants. Graphic Packaging is considered a major source, and so minor sources only get inspected every 10 years. Especially
how are they a minor source when they have so much pollution coming from there? They have spills all the time, like that are like PFAS, and that goes into the air and the water. I just don't see how they can be a minor source when they have like And they're also a Superfund site. Did you know that they're a Superfund site?
I mean, Brandi, these are different programs. I mean, in terms of air, they're a minor source. But water quality, I don't know anything about.
So the clip goes longer, but a couple things. Number one, Graphic Packaging's total net worth is almost $8 billion. The total net worth of this company, which is around the country and the world, is $7.97 billion. So they're basically gaslighting you on the phone about how they're going to find them. These companies don't care about their fines.
They don't.
The oil companies, more or less, I mean, they care. But
Graphic Packaging puts $7 million in their budget for environmental fines every year.
Right. So, like, if this is your idea, the state
fined them $100,000 for all those violations. Like, come on.
So, if this is your idea of enforcement,
right?
This is all theater. These agencies are not enforcing anything because the companies are the enforcers, and the agencies are basically standing there, dicks in hand, pretending they don't care about your fines. If there's no criminal penalty or threat of shutting them down, they're going to continue to do it. And then I believe she said they're a minor error. They're
she said the wastewater plant, which is next door to Graphic Packaging, but the wastewater plant has like 18 industries going through it that are toxic. So how can they be a minor source? They've got Pfizer going through there, Graphic Packaging. They're treating all of their toxic waste in like different like cities waste. I think Berry counties. So there's just all different like cities and counties connected to the wastewater plant. Like, I mean, this is a lot of, I don't even know. I still haven't figured that one out. But like, if anybody on here watching, how many industries, toxic facilities are allowed by law to go through a one wastewater plant? I'm very curious because I think that they're over the limit because they're so fucking greedy.
It's just unbelievable. And, you know, the truth is what you hear, and it's so clear just in her voice. I don't know this person. Maybe she's a good person in other ways.
She's the air inspector. It's her job to get violations.
But what you hear, and it's sometimes it's subconscious, but what you hear, and I've seen this over and over and over, out of sight, out of mind. They don't live there. They don't have family that lives there.
She calls Graphic Packaging her problem child. She said that to me a few years ago too.
Right, but if it shouldn't have to be this way, but if it's not personally affecting these government officials, they could just look at it, you know, academically or based on the regulations or theoretically. Well, it's this class and it's this regulation and it's not technically doing this. Well, you're not going door to door talking to sick people. You're not talking to people who their children can't play outside.
She drives around.
Right.
She doesn't get out of the car, I don't think. Like, if she does, it might be for a second. Like, I wouldn't want her job. Like, I wouldn't want to like that job anyways. But I'm just saying, like, if it was, like, if you're going to get poisoned and that's your job, like, she's getting poisoned too, you know, doing her job. So, but, like, I would have to want to get these motherfuckers. Like, I'm coming out here all the time for air complaints. I'm exposing my own self just as an Eagle employee. So the only reason I can feel like she's not doing her job and not getting these guys for doing this to everybody and her having to come at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning all the fucking time for air complaints and shit is that she's paid off. Why else would you do this? Like, and
I gotta say,
opinion, obviously.
When she says at the beginning of that, these things take a lot of time. I could see a health study monitoring the gases taking a year, maybe max.
Well, I had a toxicologist do a report that really, so this report was done by Dr. Brandon Reed from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. He's a toxicologist. I had Dr. Daniel Tessier, a toxicologist, do the report in 2020 that started this health consultation. It was the county health department. Like, I had to beg everybody to do this study. Are you serious? Like, I'm the one that talked to every single one of them every single week for 3 years. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm so shocked and I can't believe that, you know, that they told everyone to stay in the house. Like, that's your health recommendation. Like, it's insane. Like I never expected it because I gave him so many options that were so much better, obviously.
And lastly, we have a clip, you speaking with somebody from the EPA. Seemed like an okay guy, but apparently he forgot to tell you that you had the ability to file certain violations that could have potentially stopped this paper mill from expanding.
If I would have known, because I told him I filed a civil rights complaint against the city of Kalamazoo after I filed the lawsuit a couple months after that. Then he knew everything because I talked to him and everybody in Region 5 Environmental Justice Program, and everyone in probably Region 5 knows me. Everyone at Eagle knows me. So I talked to everybody so much. Like he knew that I filed that civil rights complaint. So I don't know why he didn't tell me. Why don't you file a civil rights complaint against Eagle, and that'll stop Graphic Packaging from getting their permit to expand, increase pollution. So that's what he didn't do.
That's the state environmental department he was talking about.
Right. And so if he would have told me that, I think that the expansion would have never went through because I could have stopped it. Now they've already got the permit. So now they can reduce it or fight him in court on it. I don't know. Like, I still think the EPA has the authority to shut them down no matter what they say.
Let's play some of this clip.
Why didn't, I told you guys about, the civil rights complaints that I filed against the city of Kalamazoo. I know a lot of the stuff that's going on in the EPA might not be at your level, but above you, and you might be being told certain things to do or not do, and so that's why I'm not going to put, a blame on a certain person. So I'm just going to say this, EPA, but I just want to know why I wasn't referred, or there was no referral within the agency for the discrimination going on in our neighborhood with the agency to the EPA Civil Rights Division, because I had no idea that I could even file a civil rights complaint with the EPA in order to take funding away from the Kalamazoo County Brownfield and Eagle as it relates to the discrimination on the basis of race with the frontline community in Kalamazoo.
Yeah. I honestly, I guess for my part, it didn't occur to me that would be an avenue. I thought, we had, what I was looking at was the public health concern. How do we get sampling out there? How do we do the right enforcement against this facility and require them to do everything that they need to address? And for me, I've been kind of involved with civil rights stuff over the years. I'm looking for a decision trigger, so usually, in my experience, a civil rights complaint comes when a permit is issued that is discriminatory, potentially discriminatory. Like there's a state action that's happening there.
And there is.
Yeah. So,
and there is, because Eagle shouldn't have given that permit to Graphic Packaging while they're out of compliance. I mean, you were a compliance enforcement officer for 10 years. Do you think that on your watch as a compliance enforcement officer, would you give a company that's had 8 to 10 violations and no fines and no enforcement a permit to expand the facility with hundreds of air complaints, complaints of illnesses? I mean, come on now. This can't be. Michigan is the public integrity investigation showed Michigan being the most corrupt state in the entire United States. 18 corruption cases a year compared to New York and Miami having 4, which is a lot larger area population. And that's why I feel like there's a lot of corruption going on here. There's a lot of favoritism. There's a lot of, hiding the facts from the public. That is the biggest thing to me, is not releasing public health information. That bothers me a lot, Alan. It really does. And so I did file a civil rights complaint with the EPA. I did speak to everybody, including the lawyer from DC, about that. And she said she was sorry I didn't know about how to do that. I also want to note that EPA has evacuated areas in the past. I have a whole list of areas that were evacuated for less than what's happening in our neighborhood. So that is a possibility, and there's plenty of funding now that's been given into the EPA from the president.
That's Brandi, on those examples you're mentioning, was that in context outside of?
Yeah, so it's a longer clip than that, but basically this guy failed to tell you something that seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, and then you put July 2020. So I was speaking with EPA Region 5 since July 2020, but that clip that was in October of 2021 where I talked to him, because I filed the civil rights complaint like in September 2021. And that's when I found out. I went to like a meeting and I found out. I was like, Annette, and then all of a sudden I was like, that motherfucker, why didn't he tell me? Like, damn, I was pissed. So like, I just had to call everybody and I just wanted to record like at least some of the conversations. I never recorded them. And so I just wanted to see, like, let's talk about this again, everybody involved, and let's see what you have to say, you know, because people, like, you can believe, people can either believe me or not believe me. All I've done is have to investigate, like be a damn detective to protect my family and my community's lives because you didn't do your fucking jobs.
Right.
Like, come on.
But the common denominator is this is basically death by bureaucracy. Look at the hoops you're having to go through. But now all of these people, after, yes, our coverage, forced the study to come out, forced the health department to finally release their study. Took them 3 years. Why all of a sudden did they release it, if not for it getting more exposure after our reporting? But
let's be real, though. Like, graphic packaging, the wastewater plant gave me asthma. But Eagle, EPA, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, ATSDR, the city of Kalamazoo officials, they have me on high blood pressure medicine.
Absolutely.
They have me on high, because you know what? Graphic packaging and the wastewater plant are going to do whatever the fuck they want until the government tells them not to. Absolutely. So I'm on high blood. Like right now, my chest is all red because this gets me so upset. Because I cannot believe I had to fight so hard to protect people's lives when they could have just done their jobs, man. Like 3 years.
Can we switch now so my blood pressure could go up? Because I'm about to go on a rant. It's going to be great. So, and keep the super chats coming. I'll read them at the end. So the government is only a part of this story. Then there's the media. And when I say the media helps cover things up, I mean it. It's not for like shits and giggles to say that. And some people don't like that. And maybe that's why some outlets don't like sharing our content when we break stories, because I shit on those people. And maybe one of those people is watching right now. So I just want to point this out because I just could not believe this. And by the way, if other outlets do good reporting, I don't care if they're corporate, mainstream or not, I would be happy to credit them, because at the end of the day, I just want what I believe is justice journalism, whether it's us or others, just exposing the truth on behalf of people that need the truth out there, telling the stories of people who are not going to get their stories told in, the New York Times or the Washington Post, these forgotten communities. Unfortunately, we go out to these communities because most of the time, the local outlets, if they're reporting on it, it's barely scratching the surface and basically just checking the box to say, well, we wrote an article. Well, here's some of that checking of the boxes. So I noticed, because I had tweeted earlier, basically calling out city official Kalamazoo officials who are now claiming this is unacceptable what graphic packaging is doing, and it needs to be a priority to remove, to lower the levels of gas that are being emitted. So this fella, Garrett M. Ellison, he is an environmental reporter for MLive, which MLive has different, different offices. One is in Flint, another is in Kalamazoo. They have a couple in Michigan. In Flint, it's the Flint Journal. They're about as useful as, my left toe, which is numb from 2 back surgeries. So Garrett, kind of like a backhanded compliment here. This is in response because I had tweeted, to be clear, Kalamazoo, Michigan officials ignored Black residents complaining for years about toxic gases and smell coming from graphic packaging. It took Status Coup reporting in Kalamazoo and drawing outrage for state and city officials to act. So he wrote, Jordan, it's good that it's getting more attention, but please don't try to take credit for that. It was MLive's investigation, my reporting in a, quote, mainstream newspaper, that lit the spark on this back in 2020. We have extensively followed this issue. Huh. Interesting. So I wrote back, LOL. You lit the spark reporting on graphic packaging 3 years ago and then exerting no aggressive coverage as the state health department sat on its hands for 3 years, and an activist, Brandi, who's with me now, got more information than you through FOIA? Get the hell out of here. I would have said fuck, but Twitter suppresses that kind of language. You're out regurgitated state propaganda for 9 years on the Flint water crisis, repeatedly ignoring major bombshell reporting on the Flint water cover-up. Spare me about MLive extensively following anything. So I'll show you more, but it seems he thinks that the mere act of writing about it in several articles dating back 3 years is, I don't know, investigating or exposing.
I feel like when I first told him that I had this freedom of information request that I found these gas studies like through the city of Kalamazoo FOIA that I did in the end of June, he didn't even he acted like he didn't believe me. Like, that's why I had to do public media network to go there down and go door to door with me just on my street only, like, because I felt like he wouldn't do it. So I kept asking him again. I'm like, please do this. This is serious. You're the environmental reporter for the state of Michigan. Like, you know, like, please do this. And then he was like asking me for my FOIA password or whatever. And I gave it to him, and then he did it. But then he acted like it was him too. And I was like, it's fine. Like, if you want to take credit, like I just had to discover this to save my family's life and my community's life. I don't give a shit about your career or whatever. Like, that's all you care about. Like, this is a public health emergency.
But a few things, because I'll show the tweet, but he sent the custom landing page that had all the articles he wrote about, and it's very similar to Flint. It's just reporting on there has been a lawsuit filed against graphic packaging. There is a violation against graphic packaging. Okay, that's just called like a press, just rewriting a press release or news.
I've sent him a lot of stuff still, even though him and I we don't mesh. But their other reporter for MLive, Brad Devereaux, he does city of Kalamazoo stuff. He's only supposed to cover meetings, like if there's a new curb in something. And he took over for Garrett and just he's done like 50 articles on this. Like, he's doing the best he can. He has supervisors. He's just a local journalist for Kalamazoo, but he also has to deal with these city officials every single day because he's reporting on everything for Kalamazoo, not just environment. It was Garrett's job to cover the environment. This is one of the worst environmental public health emergencies in the state of Michigan history. It was your job, Garrett, to do this shit, or at least help Brad, instead of me having to help Brad understand the chemicals and then Brad reading and Brad, doing all this stuff. This is ridiculous. Like, come on.
I got a really radical concept, Brandi. Are you with me? Maybe because I did this in Flint with my former partner. We knocked on 400 doors. Maybe Garrett, this intrepid reporter who wrote so many articles, like basically what you sent him, not actually challenging graphic packaging, not actually going, I think this was in the 21st century that he wrote these articles. So he could have driven in his car to Kalamazoo.
He lives in Kalamazoo.
Yes. He could have knocked on doors, met the residents I met who have severe asthma, burning eyes, can't go outside, showed the empty playgrounds where nobody plays because the parents won't let them out. Right. Done a stand-up. Even if he's a written reporter, you don't have to be, Walter Cronkite here, stood in front of the plant and described the smells like I did. And I'm not, Walter Cronkite or Edward Murrow. So this is the problem. He thinks just because he wrote a few articles, he lit the spark, he called it. No, what you did was you wrote a few articles, and then the company sat on the Michigan Health Department sat on its ass for 3 years. They weren't going to release this study because there was no local or state reporter actually aggressively challenging them, actually going out and getting source material from residents, talking to them on the record, getting their descriptions. not actually demanding more data from the county health department. We know that almost 2,000 Black infants under the age of 1 died in 2015. Almost 2,000 Black infants in this neighborhood died in 2015. Then mysteriously, the county stopped sharing the data. I don't know. If I were Garrett living in Kalamazoo, I might be writing articles asking, where's the rest of this data? I might be going around and knocking on doors because, call me radical as a journalist, I think you should get out of your cubicle and go out into the community and talk to people. But then the responses got better. So he went on, because he didn't like that some of these people really hate being called mainstream or corporate media, which that's what they are. So that's what I call them. But then he said, it's a story from 2020 and follow-ups are great. I love follow-ups. What I don't love are Johnny-come-latelys who stand on the shoulders of those who did the work, the hard work, and claim credit while slamming the mainstream media as if they aren't reporting something. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Well,
this is crazy. Like, this is a public
all,
health emergency. This is the main thing. Like, come on. Like, he should be supportive of you doing the journalism down there. There shouldn't be like any of this, like he said, she said bullshit. It's the fact that like this is a public health emergency, and you shouldn't be like the only. And you have your own national show, Jordan. So you are a national reporter. You work for the Guardian. Come on, like you shouldn't be the only national reporter down there. M Live is state reporting. We need CNN and ABC. I've talked to CNN and ABC. They told me they were waiting for the health consultation, or they just stopped emailing. Like they act like they were going to do stuff and then they never did. So now that the health consultation's out, there's still like, I still haven't seen anything yet. You can say all day you're going to do a story, but I want to see it. The Washington Post, anybody that the New York Times, like any reporter that I've talked to, like, come on, you guys, what is going on?
So let's dissect this, Brandi. And again, this isn't like for me to be arrogant or take credit. I don't really give a shit. And this is about more than, Garrett, because I've met reporters like this in Flint and elsewhere.
They're not. M Live isn't the only local one that didn't do shit. The Channel 3 News didn't either.
So first off, when you're calling me a Johnny-come-lately, you do realize that I don't live in Michigan. I'm not a reporter in Michigan. Technically, it's not my beat or my responsibility to cover the city of Kalamazoo. The reason that I have to be a, quote, Johnny-come-lately is because there's no Johnny-come-earlies in Kalamazoo, you fucking moron. Excuse my French. I wouldn't have gone to Kalamazoo if desperate people like Brandi weren't sending me emails and text messages. Not that I minded, because there's no local reporter. Well, excuse me, his colleague at least has been trying.
Brad's doing the best he can. But like I said, he has bosses. Like he has new ones now, and I feel like the new ones, I'm hoping, will be better than the old bosses he had, because the old boss Brad had, now he's working at like the business newspaper. Like, hello, you're going to be on graphic packaging side. I figured you were the whole time, Mickey. But that's what I'm saying. Like, everybody has different bosses and stuff like that. So I feel like that's another reason why it's like they need to stop. Like, just cut the shit, man. Just let the truth be out there. The
beautiful thing is, I have two bosses. One is my wife, and the other one is the viewers. Those are the only two bosses I have, and it makes my life harder. It makes my life harder. My wife can be a difficult boss sometimes, but when your viewers are your boss, it means you're scrapping to afford it, because our viewers are working class. Right. So I don't have the funds that Garrett has at a national, M Live or CNN or MSNBC. That's why I'm begging people, please sign up, statuscoup.com/join. But the beauty is, when you're funded by the people, they're your only boss. So I don't have to worry about, am I not going to be invited back? Am I going to lose access to the county commissioners or the mayor? Because we don't thrive off access. We don't even function off access. We go around all that. But what's amazing,
Associated Press first. They're the ones that refer to M Live.
Jordan, as your boss, I must insist you take your shirt off. I don't think you want to see that. Maybe on July 4th.
That is so funny.
But the beautiful thing about this is, it's not my responsibility to cover this. So that I don't know how you're calling me a Johnny-come-lately. I don't live in Michigan. I do it because I care. Number two, on the shoulders of those who did the hard work. What hard work did you do?
Right,
You wrote
because I had to do. I'm the one that had to like do all the investigating to get it hired. I had to hire a toxicologist. I had to pay $1,000 for a billboard. I had to contact doctors. The environmental justice meetings. Were you at any of those? Like, come on! I had to do everything. The door-to-door, hearing the residents. I get woke up.
You did the freedom. You did the freedom of information request.
The freedom of information that started it all. Like, and plenty of other freedom of information requests. On top of that, I had to call all the people at all the agencies or email them, try to get the health study done. Like, I did file civil rights complaints, file a lawsuit. What the fuck did you do? I did everything. It's insane that I had to. It's really fucked up. I belong to a lot of organizations and none of them helped, including the NAACP. Shout out. Right. Like, none of you guys give a shit what's environmental racism. You didn't give a shit about environmental justice, but now everybody wants to come on now that the health study's out. Hey,
by the
what's
way,
up,
Garrett,
Brandi?
By the way, Garrett, you're a Michigan environmental reporter. I haven't seen much from you or MLive, which encompasses the Flint Journal, on the fact that former Governor Rick Snyder, his top advisor, went around paying off or attempting to pay off sick Flint residents. Show me your article on that, Garrett. I don't see anything about the phone calls that I broke between the governor, his chief of staff, and the health department director, showing that they were covering up the Legionnaires outbreak. I broke that in The Intercept. Show me your article on that, Garrett. I don't see anything from MLive on the report that we did showing that Snyder's top officials deleted their phones right before the launch of a criminal investigation. You got that, Garrett? Spare me. You guys, we went to the Flint Journal, not Garrett. I guess he's in Kalamazoo. We handed them a packet that Jen had put together, like for dummies. Hey, here's the story. Here's the story. I know that they already knew about it, but the Flint Journal didn't want to report on it because they have ties to the people we're reporting on and exposing, which is supposed to be the opposite. So it's just unbelievable. I don't know this guy. He's probably not worth the time I'm taking. But this is part of...
Because the main thing is it's a public health emergency. Because really, let's forget Garrett. Like, honestly, yes. Everybody should have done their job. The agency should have done their job. The environmental groups people donate should have done their job. The public officials should have done their job. Like, everybody should have done their job. Everybody should have cared. You know what? Even if it wasn't your job, like, you see an accident on the side of the road, are you just gonna you see people hurt on the road? Are you gonna stop? Or are you gonna keep driving by? Because that's what this is. This is a fucking tragic accident that's happening in real time, and no one's helping, or everyone's drowning, or no, they just don't give a fuck.
Right. And lastly, he says, we have literally published dozens of stories on this. This isn't hard to look up, but I'll do it for you. And he takes me to a page that, again, graphic packaging issued emission violations. Graphic packaging forced to publicize data from toxic gas. Graphic packaging closing 200-employee Battle Creek plant. Graphic packaging's toxic this was the one that just came out after my reporting. Reporting on another fine from graphic packaging. I mean, this is all check-a-box reporting. You're not challenging graphic packaging. You're not talking to residents. You're not challenging graphic packaging. You're not challenging the governor. Did Garrett write investigating or asking why the city of Kalamazoo gave $20 million in tax breaks so that this polluter could expand? Did he go up to, I'm asking you, Brandi, did he go up to the mayor or the vice mayor or the county commissioners and challenge them on why the city of Kalamazoo was giving them tax breaks? Did he go up or phone the governor or the Michigan Economic Development Corporation that approved the $125 million bond deal when they knew of these complaints, when they knew of these issues? Spare me your articles. Oh, they were hit with a violation. That's not investigative reporting. That's just rewriting a press release. So, and I'm not saying this, I'm not emphasizing this as a kudos to me. I'm emphasizing this because you're doing a disservice to Brandi and the residents in the community. This is your beat. It's not enough to just check a box and say, well, I reported on the violations. I reported on this. I reported on that. And it's not enough now. It's not enough now to simply report on the health studies findings. You need to investigate who knew what when, who buried this, who ignored the residents, and you need to demand more testing than just hydrogen sulfide. Because, Brandi, as far as we know, they didn't test for all the other gases and the levels that were coming out. They were only testing for hydrogen sulfide.
I begged them to test for everything. I had the whole list of all the chemicals. I looked up all the toxic release inventories, because graphic packaging, they don't like report properly. I don't think any polluter, like, oh, you're gonna let the polluters report what they release and how much? Give me a fucking break. That's a joke of a fucking rule for EPA or the state. But like you looked at what, like back in the day when they didn't know about chemicals as much, like their TRI, like in the 90s and stuff. So they reported all of the chemicals and they didn't stop. Like their process is still the same. Like they've changed a few things, but most of the toxic chemicals and gases they release are the same as they did then. So then I looked up all the chemicals. I looked up like what diseases they cause. And I like thought like, oh my God, like a lot of us have all of the stuff, you know, like even other people that didn't have respiratory disease, they had kidney disease, liver disease, cancer, all that. And now University of Michigan, my CARES program is going to be coming down to Kalamazoo and testing people's blood to find out they're going to have cancer in 5 to 10 years. It's freaking ridiculous.
I honestly, I think you need to be the fucking head of the environmental department there. Maybe the health department too.
I would, because I sure as hell would do a better job.
It's unbelievable what's going on there. So fast forward, people, we now have the health study results. We now have the city of Kalamazoo covering their ass and pretending that they cared about this all along. I don't know what the governor's doing. I haven't heard anything from her since this health study came out. And now we have the health department is holding a meeting on Thursday with residents. And you could tell people they seem to be insisting on doing something first.
They want to have a private meeting with me before the town hall meeting, which I think is odd. And it's with people that I'm the only person I've really been in contact with the most on a continuous basis is Dr. Brandon Reed, who's the toxicologist that like did this. I mean, he had bosses that said agreed with his recommendations or made him change things in the report that he originally had in there. Like they edited it and stuff like that. I think they edited Dr. Reed, I really wish you would come forward as a whistleblower. You can get a job anywhere else because I know that you know that this is serious and that you know that your recommendations just didn't line up with your bosses or your boss's bosses or whatever. But you could get a job anywhere else. Like, you know, this is serious. This is a public health emergency and there needs to be way better health recommendations in this report. But you have to come forward and say something. It doesn't have to be just like this written report from the state health department. You can say as an employee of this department that you don't agree with your bosses. You can say that. Like, it's not against the law to come forward and tell the truth. Because you and I have talked many, many times and you knew that health vans were what we needed. We need relocation. You and I have talked about this, Dr. Brandon Reed. Like, and so I'm meeting with these other epidemiologists that they have the same last name. So is this another married couple that Governor Whitmer appointed that can't testify against each other in court that I'm meeting with prior to the town hall?
Can I ask a dumb question?
Sure.
You know, Mama said there's no such thing as a stupid question. Why isn't one of the recommendations to shut down the plant until they could demonstrate not poisoning the community? Why is it like
it's not like the state doesn't have enough money? They can just take this. They take the tax break, the $125 million back from graphic packaging. They could give severance packages to the employees at graphic packaging if they're worried about jobs being lost, and they can pay for relocation with the $125 million, and then maybe all the other ones. Just like have graphic packaging, since they've been criminal polluters all these years, pay back all of the fines they should have received if they were violated properly for violating the Clean Air Act and Water Act, and fine graphic packaging. Like just shut them down and just take all your money back, take all the taxes back, take everything back, give it to the people that got poisoned. Make sure that that they have money to relocate, clean up all that land if you want it to be redeveloped in the future. Make sure it's cleaned up properly, and stop issuing permits to hazardous facilities next to environmental justice communities who have 14, 15-year death gaps already. And it's not rocket science, really. It's really not.
But until the plant can demonstrate that they can meet regulatory levels, which in many cases are not good enough, but at the very least, summer's coming, hot weather, it gets worse. So I don't understand. I mean, literally, yeah, they released the health study admitting that they were releasing hazardous levels, but then the solution was, stay inside to the residents if it's odorous.
I begged them to test for everything. Jordan, I begged them to test for all the chemicals and gases because it's not fair that they're just focusing on hydrogen sulfide, which is the tox. I mean, that hurt us, but like, what about the toxic gases that have no odor? Hello, there's lots of those that have no odor. The acid rain that comes from that. What about the mailman that, you know, his eyes are burning from the acid rain when he's coming through the neighborhood? Did anybody think about him too? Like, I mean, come on, like, this is insane. Like, it's just crazy to me that no one will help or come forward. Like, just somebody have some balls here. Like, for God's sakes, like, have some balls and freaking do your job. Like, you guys, I have all you guys already. I have all your emails. I have all your Zoom calls. I have recordings. Like, you're all fucked because you didn't do your shit. So now you're just going to have to clean up your act.
And let me explain to you, not to be condescending, but just because I know why they're trying to meet with you privately before, you have been the, you know, Kalamazoo's Aaron Brockovich. So they want to neutralize you. I'm not saying like villainous, you know, take you out kind of thing, but they want to meet with you. They want to meet. So. They want to meet with you. They want to meet with you before the meeting with residents to see if they could kind of, you know, get you to quiet down a little bit. Try to convince you that they're actually trying to fix this now and get you kind of on their side so that you
I know more than they do. It seems like, I mean, even if it seems like I know more than they do about the chemicals, even though they know, but it's just like, what can you tell me that I don't already know? What can you say to me that's not going to make me be so pissed off of the results of this health consultation? Because it's pure shit when you tell everybody, if you already have asthma, okay. Graphic Packaging issues a statement today saying, we're happy that hydrogen sulfide wasn't found to be the causation of asthma. But hydrogen sulfide was found to aggravate asthma, to make you have an asthma attack and die. So it doesn't matter if there was a causation between it or not. It's the fact that people are still being exposed to it and people are still having asthma attacks and dying. And that's just one.
And we've interviewed people who had minor asthma and it developed into severe asthma.
That was me. I had none. Like, come on.
Yeah.
My son had chronic headaches. I mean, nosebleeds. Like, we've all experienced this stuff, wondering what the hell is this coming from? How did you feel if your kid is screaming bloody murder because his headache is so bad and you don't know why?
Right.
And you have to take him to the emergency room, and they just give him medicine. Like, and it doesn't take, you know, until we moved away, like, headache stopped, his depression got better, his anxiety got better. My anxiety got worse because I'm dealing with assholes that don't want to do their fucking job. Obviously, I got him blood pressure medicine, but thankfully my son, like, he got better, and my lungs only got 5% better. But now I have to go to the asthma doctor tomorrow after I went down there with you. I've had to use my inhaler, and I was down there an hour talking to you. When we were at Graphic Packaging, it's aggravated my asthma so bad for the past, 3 weeks ago?
My eye was swollen around here for 2 weeks. It's just
I had burning eyes for
better.
burning eyes for like 9 days.
Yeah.
Like, so. It's insane. And so imagine how people are living with this every single day, 24 hours a day. They pump up those machines late at night, even worse. And that's what a majority of the complaints are. But this is the weird thing that I still haven't figured out, that I'm still... that I completely just space about. You know, my grandfather was a state police officer for 31 years. And I'm not saying anything until I find out what the hell is really going on here. But why are the pollution emergency calls for the state environmental department, like Eagle, why are they going to the state police between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m.? Is that because the state police has the authority to shut down Graphic Packaging for gas leaks, or what? Because when I looked up the criminal enforcement manual, it had the state police's number on there too. So I'm like wondering, was the state police supposed to help too with, or what? Because as soon as it's 8 a.m., then Eagle takes over again. Like, people need to be calling the pollution emergency lines when they smell things that are wrong, or they have symptoms that they know, like, it can't be from, you know, they can't figure it out. Like, their doctors can't figure it out, but you live next to hazardous facilities. You need to investigate this stuff. Like, if you can afford to move. Please, I'm begging you. Like, you don't put your family's life at risk. And I'm going to keep fighting, not just for Kalamazoo, but like just to bring awareness to all communities in the United States. Not just, this is environmental racism. It's been happening a long time. It's racism, you know, it's just racism. Let's call it what it is. Like, I mean, a lot of this is happening because I'm telling you, there was a Flat Rock, which is a predominantly white community in Michigan. And they had a gas leak. I think it was coming from Ford. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. And Eagle and the health department responded to that, put people in hotels. Like they responded to this 90% white community in the Detroit suburbs, like immediately. And they've ignored us for 3 years. And it's because the neighborhood is Black. But now with the expansion, everything is spread to the white neighborhoods too. So my friends that live in white neighborhoods are sick. My friends that live in the Black neighborhoods are sick. Like that's, right. Everyone's sick. Like, come on. Do you want to keep how many deaths does the state want to be responsible for? How many more deaths does the government want to be responsible for? Are you guys going to help or what? Like, just come on, please help. Please. I'm begging you. Like, God is watching. If anybody that works at these departments of protection and environmental and health believe in God or go to church, do you think he's happy? No.
Thank you, Brandi. Thursday is finally a meeting with the health department and residents. So we won't be there.
5:30 p.m. Mount Zion Baptist Church in Kalamazoo Town Hall. Come speak up, everybody. Please, please, please. Beg for your lives. I hope it will help.
We will definitely cover it, even though we won't be there. We'll definitely stay on that. And thanks for coming on again.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So that was Brandi. Let's read some super chats. We still are looking for some member signups. So as you can see from today's show, we're staying out there. Lewis was just back at East Palestine. I was in Flint, Kalamazoo. I believe it's very clear our reporting in Kalamazoo was the reason that the health department finally released this study. They had sat on it for 3 years and released it the week after I fucking shamed them. And we got a lot of traction on social media with our content for our reporting from the plant. So if some of you can sign up, 16 cents a day, that's $5 a month. $10 a month is 33 cents a day. Please, please, please sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. Again, $5 to $10 a month. You can help fund this on the ground reporting. We need it. Right now, we're at 59 new members. 59 new members have signed up this month. Our goal is to get that up to 100 by the end of May. So we have half the month to get 41 new members. I think we could do it. So help us get there. And again, Friday at 7 o'clock Eastern will be our monthly members call. So that's 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. If you are a member through our website, that's StatusCoup.com/join, or a YouTube member, or a patron, you will get the video link through Zoom to join our members call. It's always a lot of fun. Let me read the super chats we have. Thank you. Joshua Jenkins, $20. Jordan, how is life in your city? Because unless there's another 9/11 or January 6th, the police patrol must be massive at night. I'm saying that because the media is eager to ramp up their surveillance state. I mean, the police are, it's a military up in New York City. I'm living right outside the city, but it's basically a military. I mean, I don't even know how many police they have in New York City, but it's bigger than most militaries. I'll say it that. Between the surveillance, facial recognition, what we're seeing as the response to protests now, Democrat president, Republican president, doesn't really matter. George Floyd, major civil rights movements in response, a lot of talk, nothing changes. Nothing's going to change until we have some type of general strike in this country, which I've said over and over again. And the police are going to continue getting bigger because they are who protect this capitalist system we have. Thank you, Caitlin, $5. Quote, the world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. Einstein. That is a great quote. I am actually going to screenshot that. I like it. And repeat it sometimes. Caitlin, again, £5. Please buy a hazmat suit. Good photo op. I like that idea. And my wife would like it too. She would like me to leave the house wearing a hazmat suit at all times. Caitlin, $20. Thank you so much. Quote, if a visitor should come to the country from another planet, would he not find it strange that in this country, so much power is permitted to private corporations without their having commensurate responsibility? Another Einstein. Brilliant. Love it. Humorous, $5. Jordan, now the count is back. I am still having trouble renewing my membership. Thank you. I will tell him to contact you, Humorous. Thanks for reminding me, and thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. I don't think I missed anybody. Did I miss any? No, I got everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern. Kim Brown will be back at 6 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. So we'll have the normal show at 5 o'clock and then Kim's hour at 6 o'clock Eastern. So buckle up. We'll be live from 5 to 7 tomorrow. And if anything breaks before then, we'll be live again. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night, guys.